I'd waited my whole life to buy a house. So imagine my surprise when a complete stranger told me I couldn't move in without her personal permission. Yeah, you heard that right. Not the city, not the bank. Some woman in a pantsuit holding a clipboard and smug attitude blocked my driveway with a folding chair and said, "You'll need to speak with me before you unload anything. I'm the HOA president. Nothing happens here without my say-so. If you've ever dealt with an HOA Karen, drop a comment. I need to know I'm not alone. And if you enjoy seeing entitled power trips fall apart, you'll want to stay for this one. Like, subscribe. This gets good. Let's rewind." After 10 years working as a cybersecurity consultant for fintech firms, I'd finally saved enough to escape rentals and bad landlords. The place was a two-story brick house in a peaceful, middle-income suburb about 40 minutes from Atlanta. Quiet cul-de-sac, tree-lined street, birds, gardens, neighbors who waved, until her. I pulled up to the house early that Saturday morning, still buzzing from the closing. My buddy James was behind me in a rented U-Haul, windows down, music playing. I'd already given him a heads up. We'd unload quickly, grab pizza, and crash on camping chairs until my furniture arrived the next day. Except as I stepped out of my car, this woman, sharp chin, oversized sunglasses, perfect bob cut, stood on my sidewalk like she owned the property. "You must be Eric," she said, not a question. Uh, yeah. "I'm Janice Mallory, president of the Oak Hill Homeowners Association." She extended a hand, but not warmly. More like I was applying for a job. I shook it, confused. "Before you start moving things in," she continued, "we need to discuss your application status." I blinked. "My mortgage was approved last week. I signed the closing papers yesterday." She gave a tight, artificial laugh. "Oh no, not that application. I'm referring to your HOA orientation and approval." I raised an eyebrow. "What approval?" "I own the house." Janice didn't even flinch. "Ownership doesn't override procedure, Mr. Green. We have strict community standards. You were supposed to attend our welcome session before taking occupancy. I emailed the guidelines packet 2 weeks ago." "To who?" I asked. She pursed her lips. "To your listing agent. It's standard." I felt my irritation rise. "So because they didn't forward your email, I can't move in?" She stepped slightly to the side, revealing a laminated sign taped to a lawn chair. "Stop. Unauthorized moving." James is still in the U-Haul, leaned out and called, "Everything okay?" "Apparently we're trespassing," I muttered. Janice folded her arms. "Until orientation is complete, and you've signed our code of residency, technically, yes." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Ma'am, I just bought this house. I have the keys. The deed is in my name. What you're doing is illegal." She arched an eyebrow. "I suggest you lower your tone. Non-compliance with HOA leadership reflects poorly on new residents. There are fines, processes, expectations." That was when I hit record on my phone, slipping it into my shirt pocket. "Are you preventing me from moving into my legally purchased home?" I asked calmly. She hesitated. "I'm enforcing standard HOA onboarding." "By physically blocking my driveway?" "No one's blocking. I'm simply advising you to wait." James stepped out of the truck, frowning. "Eric," I waved him off. "Give me a sec." Janice's tone sharpened. "I'll be filing a report about this incident. Interference with HOA procedure is a violation." "Of what law?" I asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled out a clipboard and began writing furiously. That's when my neighbor across the street, older guy in a flannel shirt and baseball cap, walked over. "Everything all right here?" Janice stiffened. "This is HOA business, Mr. Phillips." He ignored her, turning to me. "You the new owner?" "Yeah, just trying to move in." He nodded. "You're fine. Welcome to the neighborhood. Don't let her scare you. She's full of it." Janice turned bright red. "Howard, this is not your concern." "Sure it is," he replied. "Your little HOA doesn't have legal standing to delay possession of a property. You're on the thin ice, Janice." I saw her jaw tighten, eyes flicking from me to Howard to James. Without another word, She yanked the laminated sign off the chair, picked up her clipboard, and stalked away down the street. No goodbye, no smile, nothing. We started unloading. Howard stayed a few minutes, gave me a rundown of the neighborhood. He kept it short, but his tone was clear. Janice had a reputation: control freak, petty, vindictive. He told me to keep my head down and document everything. By that night, Janice had left a note on my door. You are still required to complete the HOA orientation within 72 hours or face initial compliance fines. I crumpled it, tossed it in the trash, and sat on my porch watching the sky go dark over my new home. I had no idea this woman would try to ruin everything, but I was ready. The next morning, I woke up to a bright yellow envelope taped to my front door. Inside, a printed violation notice from the Oak Hill HOA. My offense? Unauthorized occupancy prior to formal orientation. Violation code 4.2, B fine, $100 per day. Due, immediately I stared at the paper like it might dissolve if I blinked hard enough. But no, it was real. The name at the bottom, typed in the sharp, bold font. Janice Mallory, HOA president. I hadn't even unpacked a full suitcase. I called the number listed on the form. Straight to voicemail. Generic greeting, no name, no business hours. I left a polite but firm message. Then I walked outside and started setting up cameras. 2 over the garage, 1 facing the front yard, and 1 angled toward the street. Motion triggered, cloud upload. No wires anyone could snip. You might say I was overreacting, but I come from digital security. You learn fast that people abuse systems when they think no one's watching, and Janice clearly thought she could act unchecked. I didn't have to wait long. Later that day, while unpacking kitchen boxes, I heard a knock. Not a doorbell, a knock. Sharp, rhythmic. I opened the door to see Janice again, this time with a clipboard and a man in sunglasses behind her. Mid-50s, tight polo shirt, Bluetooth earpiece. This is Dennis, she said flatly, our HOA compliance officer. He nodded but didn't smile. We're here to conduct an initial exterior inspection, Janice continued. Standard for all new residents. I haven't even moved in fully, I said. There's nothing to inspect. She ignored that. Your trash bins were visible from the curb yesterday. That's a violation of Section 6.1. I frowned. They were empty. I just moved in. Dennis scribbled something on a form. And this grass height, she added, towing a patch by the sidewalk. It's edging above regulation. I haven't had time to mow, I said. It's been less than 24 hours. You had time to install cameras, she said, eyeing one near the gutter. Yes, I said, for my protection. Janice's smile didn't reach her eyes. If you're implying some kind of threat, I'm stating facts. Dennis stepped forward. Sir, we'll be issuing a second violation notice today. I'd advise you to begin lawn compliance as soon as possible. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it felt like I'd stepped into a parody. Are you finished? I asked. Janice's eyes narrowed. Expect a certified letter this week. They turned and walked away, leaving me standing there like I just lost a round in a game I didn't even agree to play. By the following Tuesday, I'd received 2 more violation notices. One for a garden hose visible from the sidewalk, and another for incomplete paint touch-ups on porch railing. I hadn't even painted anything. Then came the real escalation. Thursday morning, 9:13 a.m., I was working on my laptop when 2 uniformed officers showed up on my doorstep. Mr. Eric Green? The taller one asked. I nodded, heart suddenly pounding. We received a report of a suspicious individual occupying this residence without proper documentation. Are you the owner of this property? I blinked, stunned. Yes, I have the deed in my safe. Do you have ID? I grabbed my wallet and handed it over. Then I asked, who reported this? They exchanged a glance. We can't disclose that, but the caller stated that a squatter had moved in and was refusing to leave. A squatter. I couldn't believe it. I handed them a copy of the deed, my closing documents, and pointed to the cameras recording every second of this exchange. They took a few minutes to verify everything, then apologized. Sorry for the inconvenience. Clearly a misunderstanding. I nodded. No problem. But I'd appreciate a note on the record. This isn't going to be the last time, is it? The shorter officer gave me a sympathetic look. You'd be surprised how often HOA complaints escalate like this. They left. Not an hour later, I spotted Janice walking her Yorkie past my house, eyes locked on my front door. She smiled, the kind of smile that says, checkmate. I smiled back, the kind that says, try again. I spent that weekend documenting everything. I filmed a walkthrough of the property, saved all letters and envelopes, time-stamped my videos, and uploaded them to cloud storage in triplicate. Sunday evening, I got a knock at the door again. This time, it wasn't Janice. It was Officer Greg Morales. Same badge number from the Thursday incident, but now in plain clothes and off duty. He smiled sheepishly. Sorry to bother you. I live 2 blocks down. Saw your name on the HOA's complaint list and, well, figured I should stop by. We stood on the porch while he explained. Janice has a history, he said. She weaponizes HOA rules. Most people just fold to avoid the stress. She called 911 on me, I said. Greg nodded, and she'll do it again. But there's a pattern. She pushes until someone pushes back. Nobody ever documents it well enough. I opened the app on my phone and showed him the cloud folder. Surveillance clips, violation notices, timestamps, even her recorded demands at move-in. Greg whistled. You're smarter than the last guy she tried this on. Who was that? Greg hesitated. A single mom, nurse. She moved out 6 months after moving in. Couldn't take it. We sat in silence for a moment. Then he said, if you want to stop her, I mean really stop her, you're going to need more than video. I looked at him. You're going to need the bylaws, the finances, the audit trail, because the way she operates, it's not about rules, it's about control. And just like that, the idea took root. This wasn't a property dispute, it was a war, and I was done playing defense. By Monday morning, I had a printed copy of the entire HOA charter, all 87 pages of it, sitting on my dining table. It was worse than I expected. Vague language, contradicting sections, and enough gray areas to drown a lawsuit in legal mud. No surprise there. Janice had clearly helped craft the thing to suit her own power games. But in the chaos, I also found something promising. Section 11.4b, all HOA leadership actions must adhere to state property access laws and may not interfere with the legal rights of title-holding residents, which meant every one of Janice's violation notices tied to unauthorized occupancy was not only unenforceable, it was possibly illegal. I called Greg. She's been bluffing, I told him. Of course, he said, but proving it is what counts. You want help? I did. Greg wasn't just an officer. He used to work internal affairs before retiring early and moving to Oak Hill to find peace, as he put it. Instead, he'd landed 2 blocks from Janice Mallory. He'd seen her abuse the system before, but never had anyone push back this hard. We set a plan. He would quietly speak with other neighbors who had been targeted in the past. I would keep my cameras rolling and dig into the HOA's finances, leadership rosters, and historical complaint records, all legally accessible under Georgia HOA disclosure laws. But first, we baited the trap. I parked a small flower box, totally regulation size, next to my driveway, in full compliance with the bylaws. Then I added a tiny wooden sign. Welcome home, owner occupied, harmless. Cheerful, subtle jab. It lasted 14 hours. The next morning, my cameras recorded Janice walking by with her dog, stopping at the sign, reading it, frowning, then looking up directly at my camera with the faintest twitch of a smirk. That afternoon, another violation notice arrived. Unauthorized signage. $75 fine. That was the tipping point. I filed an official appeal with the HOA's management company. Greg helped me write it using exact legal language from the Georgia HOA code. Then I posted the entire incident video, without names or addresses, to a popular local Facebook group titled Suburban Survival, HOA Nightmares. The response was immediate. Comments poured in. Same woman gave me a fine for drying a towel on my porch rail. She told me I couldn't host my sister's baby shower because it wasn't pre-approved. She threatened to report me to animal control over my rescue pit bull. He's a certified therapy dog. Then a private message came in from Amanda Reese. She lived 3 houses up, and she had been on the HOA board until she resigned 6 months ago. Her message was short. I have documents. You're not the first. Want to talk? We met in the community park that Sunday, neutral ground. Amanda was mid-40s, composed, and, to my relief, furious. Janice rewrites rules as she goes, she said. She issues fines without board approval. She scares people into silence. Why hasn't anyone stopped her? She's good at isolating targets, one person at a time, and she counts on nobody having the patience to fight back. Amanda slid a USB drive across the picnic table. Those are PDFs of the last 2 years of financial reports. Notice anything interesting? I did, and later that night. Over $9,000 in vague administrative expenses. Another $3,200 labeled compliance logistics. All approved and signed by Janice herself. The bylaws required board approval for any expenditure over $500. There were no approval signatures, just hers. Greg reviewed the files with me and smiled grimly. This is the crack. Keep digging, and she's done. That week, I filed a formal complaint to the HOA oversight firm, attaching documentation of illegal fines, abuse of authority, and financial misconduct. Amanda agreed to sign as a witness. Greg submitted a supporting affidavit as a retired officer and resident. And just when I thought things might settle, Janice escalated. Hard. Friday morning, as I came back from a run, a city zoning officer was standing in my driveway. Got a complaint about unpermitted construction, he said, pointing to my gutter. I haven't built anything. Anonymous tip says otherwise. We're required to inspect. He looked annoyed, like he knew it was nonsense, but had to do his job anyway. I walked him around the property. No violations, no modifications. He shrugged, muttered something about some HOAs being nuts, and left. An hour later, my mailbox held a new notice. Emergency HOA board review requested. Member conduct inquiry. Janice was trying to expel me. But it was too late. I wasn't the one on trial anymore. I was the one building a case. And Janice? She had just walked into it. Clipboard first. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 7 p.m. Wednesday in the HOA Community Center, a prefab building next to the playground, where birthday balloons outnumbered votes most weeks. But that night, it was standing room only. I arrived 15 minutes early with Greg, Amanda, and a man named Louis Feldman, a quiet attorney who specialized in HOA fraud and who, thanks to Amanda's persistence, had agreed to attend pro bono. The room was buzzing. Janice stood near the podium, wearing a royal blue blazer and a look of polished disdain. Her allies, a tight knot of older board members, flanked her like she was about to accept an award. She didn't see the USB drive in my pocket. Janice opened the meeting with what she called a crucial disciplinary hearing concerning repeated violations by a non-compliant resident. She used my name like a curse. This individual, she said, has refused orientation, defied our signage rules, and circulated slanderous material about this board and this community. She smiled at the word slanderous, clearly pleased with herself. I stood slowly. My voice didn't shake. With respect, I'd like to present counter-evidence and documentation. A ripple of murmurs followed. Greg placed a stack of folders on the center table. Amanda handed a printed spreadsheet to each board member. Louis placed a printed letter of legal representation beside the microphone. Janice tried to interrupt, but Greg raised his voice. We'll speak, then you can respond. Silence. And then I began. First, I outlined the dates and details of each violation notice I'd received, along with video evidence proving that some were completely fabricated. I played the 9/11 audio recording of the call Janice made, claiming I was trespassing, even after ownership records were filed. Next, Amanda read aloud sections of the HOA bylaws Janice had violated, including illegal fine assessments, single signature fund authorizations, and failure to log board-approved motions. Then came the USB drive. We plugged it into the projector. The first document showed $3,200 spent on compliance consulting, routed through a firm registered under a business address shared by Janice's cousin. The second showed camera footage of Janice removing my welcome home sign and then reporting it as found damage. And then we played the video from the day of the zoning officer visit. The complaint email Janice had sent from the HOA account was printed beside it. The final slide? A signed statement from Lewis Feldman asserting that the financial discrepancies were grounds for immediate censure under Georgia nonprofit compliance laws, and recommending a temporary suspension of all HOA activity pending audit. The room went dead silent. Janice opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Her eyes scanned the faces in front of her. And what she saw wasn't loyalty. It was fear, doubt, and worst of all for her, people who'd finally had enough. A voice spoke from the back. It was Howard Phillips, the older neighbor from my move-in day. "I got fined in 2020 for a garden gnome my wife put out, said it violated sightline policy, but Janice's lawn has 3 of them." Murmurs spread. Another woman raised her hand. "My daughter was written up for leaving a bike on the porch overnight. We paid the fine, but her grandson parks a scooter there every day." Greg stood up. "This isn't about gnomes or scooters. This is about power. This woman's been abusing her role to intimidate, extract money, and punish people for not falling in line." Janice exploded. "You're all ungrateful," she snapped. "I've kept this place clean, safe, respectable. Without me, this neighborhood would fall apart." She stepped forward, voice rising. "This little rebellion, this witch hunt, it's illegal. I've already called my attorney. You people will regret this." I stepped back to the mic. "You called 911 to have me removed from my own home. You fined me for grass height that didn't exceed HOA standards. You tried to scare me into leaving." Pause. "I'm not leaving." Someone clapped. Then someone else. Soon the room was filled with applause. Hesitant at first, then solid. Not wild cheering. Just enough to show the spell had broken. The board called for a closed-door vote. 15 minutes later, Janice was suspended from her position, pending investigation. Her keys were collected on the spot. She didn't speak another word. Just grabbed her purse, turned on her heels, and walked out, eyes straight ahead, like none of us existed. But we did, and now for the first time, we weren't afraid. Janice Mallory was gone. Not arrested, not exiled, just absent. But in a neighborhood used to her shadow looming over everything from mailbox height to Christmas lights, her silence felt louder than any tantrum. For the first time in years, Oak Hill was breathing. Amanda was voted in as interim president 2 days after the meeting. No fanfare, no drama, just a quiet acknowledgement that something had to change. The same board that had once rubber-stamped Janice's rule now couldn't meet my eyes. A few resigned quietly in the following weeks. Others stayed, apologetic and visibly rattled. The first order of business, pausing all open violation notices and suspending fines. The second, a full audit of the HOA's financials. Greg and I helped where we could. Amanda brought in a certified public accountant. What they found wasn't shocking, not after everything we'd uncovered, but it was worse than anyone wanted to admit. Janice had been funneling HOA funds into her cousin's consulting business for nearly 3 years. The services listed included items like landscape cohesion assessments and community image evaluations, all completely made up. The CPA's report stated clearly at least $17,000 had been misappropriated. The money was gone. No receipts, no contracts, no approvals. Amanda filed a police report. The HOA's legal counsel, now fully engaged, recommended civil action to recover the funds. As word spread, a group of residents formed an informal committee to track down others who'd been harassed by Janice. I stayed quiet during most of that, not because I didn't care, but because I was tired. The adrenaline had burned out. I could finally sit on my porch at night without scanning for threats. The cameras still ran, of course, but the sense of siege was gone. One afternoon, I came home from work to find a package on my doorstep. No return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Thank you for not backing down. No name, no signature. Just that. Amanda told me later that Janice had put her house up for sale. Quietly, no signs, no listing. She was trying to offload it through a private network, maybe to avoid attention, maybe just to disappear. I heard she moved to South Carolina. Someone said she was living in a condo now. No lawn, no HOA, just concrete and balconies. I didn't care enough to check. The lawsuit went forward. Last I heard, the court ordered restitution. A lien was placed on her property. Maybe she paid, maybe she didn't, but it was on the record. And in neighborhoods like Oak Hill, records speak louder than rumors. 3 months after the board meeting, Amanda hosted a community barbecue. Open invitation, no pressure. I wasn't sure if I'd go, but around sunset I walked down anyway. There were kids playing tag, lawn chairs arranged in loose circles, and folding tables full of potluck food. Greg waved me over. So did Howard. Even Dennis, the once stone-faced compliance officer, came by to shake my hand. You did good, he said awkwardly but sincerely. Never seen anyone stand up to her like that. Didn't do it alone, I replied. We talked, laughed, exchanged stories. For the first time, it felt like a neighborhood, not a battleground. Amanda pulled me aside near the end. I think we're going to rewrite the bylaws, she said. Start from scratch, make them clear, fair, transparent. I smiled. Sounds revolutionary. She grinned. More like long overdue. As I walked home that night, the air was warm, soft. Porch lights glowed on either side of the street. It felt like closure. Before bed, I checked my cameras one last time. Not out of paranoia, just habit. Nothing but stillness. And just before turning in, I stepped out onto the porch with a drink in hand, leaned on the railing, and let the quiet wash over me. Somewhere out there, Janice was probably planning her next crusade. But not here, not anymore. Because in Oak Hill, the rules had finally changed. And for once, they belonged to the people who actually lived there. And I was one of them.